Thank you everyone for joining us. This is session 5.4 in the technical DBA track. It's a bird of a feather, or our database administrator panel. Basically, it's an open forum. Talk to the folks. What we're trying to do, what I've been trying to do, is get everybody an opportunity to be involved on the panel. And who knows, I might call on you next year. But today we've got Larry Holder from the University of Tennessee at Martin. We've got Rob Pierce at the University of Swanee. Dana Nails from Jackson State Community College. And James Foster from Middle Tennessee State University. Please, anybody got questions they'd like to open up?
Well, I guess we're done here.
Hey! All right, well, let me start out with a question. How's your Banner 8 implementation doing? And what did you find most challenging for that implementation?
Let's see, we went to Banner 8 in February, and probably the character set conversion thing was probably the biggest thing for us. We use the CS alter method, but it doesn't matter. Whatever method you use, that was the biggest thing for us. From the other standpoint, really, as far as the upgrades themselves, it felt like Banner 7, Banner 6, you know. As far as that goes, it was the same old Banner stuff. So don't get scared about that. A lot of them, you know, they don't stack. But other than that, it was really more the database thing, because my general rule of thumb has always been never mix an OS or an Oracle or a Banner upgrade all at the same time. Just change one thing and you got one smoking gun. Of course, you didn't have a choice this time. The only thing I could put in early was ICU. So, but thankfully it went fairly painless. It worked. So.
Well, I did the import DB DP option, and the character set stuff. One of the things that you can do, if you haven't already, is change your character set to the MS Win character set ahead of time. That's going to catch the vast majority of any issues you're going to have going to UTF-8 later, because you know, most people, hopefully you're not at US 7 ASCII, but if you're at the Western European ISO 8859P1, if you're at that character set, which several years ago that was Oracle's stated character set. Everybody should be at the Western European character set. This is the one you need to be at. And then it's only been the last 2 or 3 years that they've changed and said, well, maybe if you're not going to be UTF-8, then you should be on the MS Win character set. Primarily because when people are doing these cuts and pastes from their desktop, they're using a Windows machine. So you're getting those Windows characters, you're getting those, you know, special quotes and things like that that just don't translate into the Western European character set. So if you go ahead now, before you go to whatever you're doing, and convert that to the MS Win, depending on how much data you have and how much of that data is bad data, it could take a little while to fix that. But I got all that fixed ahead of time and was running on the MS Win character set for the better part of a year before we actually did our upgrade to Banner 8. And that was about this time last year. I was about one step away from being locked up in a padded room, trying to keep up with all the Banner 7 updates and changes. And Banner 8 was, you know, you got to keep your test environment up to date. So trying to maintain these two environments that, if y'all remember this time last year, it seemed like there was more than a patch a day coming out for both environments. And it was just getting to be overwhelming. And we had a couple of last minute, you know, showstopper type issues that we were worried about. And once we cleared those and I had a green board, it was like, okay, let's go. And just about that time, SunGuard comes out and says, oh, guess what? We're going to give you another 6 months to do this, so we can put this off another year. And I went back to my people and I said, yeah, they just gave us 6 months. We're going in November, because otherwise you're going to be locking me up in a room before the 6 months is up. We went in November. It was a grueling process. Took it down on the Wednesday of Thanksgiving week, and basically kicked everybody off the system at 5 p.m. on that Wednesday. Did the backups, full backups of the system, shut it completely down, cold backed up everything. And then we were going to a new machine, which is very helpful in this case. So after the backups were done, copied those backup files, basically copied the DBF files and all the database over to the new machine, fired it up over there, started running the import, and from there, you know, it was just, that was all done on, you know, while I was sitting there at Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday, there's processes running in the background, reloading the database. Friday morning, when I walked in the door at about 7 a.m. Friday morning, started hitting patches. And it was pretty much banging the keyboard for 13 hours straight. And once I was done with that, we were up and running. So we were actually up and on Banner 8 in 2 days. But it's definitely going to take time, and it definitely depends on how big your database is, how much data you have, how much of a conversion issue you're going to have. Again, having gone through the MS Win character set conversion with the CS alter to that beforehand, I didn't have any issues with the character set.
The other thing to remember is you can do your CS scan as many times as you want, all the way up to time. So play with it early. You know, look at it today and see what you got.
Also, take your test environment and do your import data pumps and go over those logs, go over them and over them, because whenever you go through the prod, you don't want to have to be fixing issues. So make a clone of your prod, upgrade it through import data pump, and then just make sure that's clean as you possibly can get it. Because we had a lot of issues with that. Privileges removed, and whenever you imported it, you know, a user didn't have privileges on a table space, and none of their objects imported. We had to trace down all those little situations.
Rob, quick question.
Yeah.
You said you code back up and you copy your files over. I'm expecting you did, after you got your code backup over there, then you got your character set fixed up, and then you dropped the export to go into the new prod, right?
Basically,
Right.
it was,
You didn't start working on, because I heard something about an import, and because I'm in a cold backup copy over there, so I'm expecting you to.
basically we started out with we had a new machine that we started out, put the ICU on there, put COBOL on there, built it up. I had a test database over there that I cloned out and built and rebuilt 4 complete, as if I were really doing this. I did this 4 times. The first time I did the upgrade test, it took me 3 weeks to get all the patches and pieces on there and making meticulous notes about, okay, here's a little issue, you have to do this, tweaking the strips, getting it all just right. Like I said, that first time out of the box took 3 weeks, and basically as soon as I was done with that, I scraped it off and started the second one. So I went through that process 4 times until the last time it was start, end, bang, one day, do the whole thing. Shut off the phone, don't answer the door, just sit there and do it like you're doing it for real. That way you got a good feel whether you can actually do this in a 2 or 3 day weekend. The process itself was taking doing a full backup is just a good practice anyway, but taking the banner home and some of the other areas and copying those over to the new server, that way you know you're starting with the same home that you need to be starting with. Doing that again several times before you've actually done that. You do the export data pump to get all of that data out, and then you bring that over to the new server. I brought the import file over to the new server, the export file over to the new server, and then imported that. I built a stub database. All it was just the bare minimum. Okay, you have all your table spaces. I built the database out on the new server with the same name as the old server. Added all of the users manually, had scripts that built out all the users, all the privileges, the special privileges that you needed on certain system objects, things like that. All of those things that are going to trip you up when you do your import, you get all those. Again, if you do this 3 or 4 times and you check those logs, then you get all this known ahead of time. So you do all that ahead of time, and then when you get ready to do that import, it should just go straight in. You're still going to have warnings in that file. But if you've gone through that file 3 or 4 times, then you go, okay, I got 316 of these. It tells me the object already exists. I expect that. Here are these other things. Here are these other things. You shouldn't see anything. It should be boring. It should be tedious and boring. It should not be exciting and fun. It should just be tedious and boring. And that's what I want there.
That should go.
All right.
For those of you who are on 11G, what advice would you give to those who are getting ready to take the plunge?
I'm not.
We're not on 11G. I think Motlow has recently gone to 11G, is that correct, Laura?
And test.
And test. Did you guys have any glitches or problems going?
Greg made good notes, so I just followed Greg's notes.
That seems to be a
Following up.
different animal, we got the, what is it, ACL?
You do have the ACLs to worry about and set up. You definitely have those. The location of our alert logs has moved around a bit. So administratively, there are some issues with just managing and administering an 11G database. The password case sensitivity can be an issue. Now, in theory, INB and self-service and these others are going to work with it. There is a flag, if you do run into a problem, there is an init flag that you can set that says, go back to the 10G non-case sensitive passwords. The problem long-term with that is, eventually, you really probably don't want to do that. It is something that is an added security feature, so it's probably something you should go ahead and work through the issues early on. That would be my advice, but. Yeah.
In our testing and development and working with the schools on that, we did run across some products where you have to make changes. One of those changes is on the INB machine. You have to tell INB that those applications are not going to convert the passwords to uppercase. Unfortunately, not all the INB applications accept that parameter. And we have had to force all of our passwords to non-case sensitive right now until we can get through all of those applications to work correctly. Once that happens, we will be able to go back to the case sensitive switches.
So you are setting the init param right now?
Right now, we are forcing the init param to false as a stopgap measure, if you will, because of those problems that we've identified. Now, it is documented that you can set it up to be true, and you have to make a change on your configuration for INB
Right.
so that they work, but we have found some applications that are not written to accept that parameter.
Isn't it wonderful?
Technology at its best.
Why aren't we supposed to go to 11G before the end of the year?
You have to be on 11G, if you want to maintain full support from Oracle, you have to be on 11G by next July?
July 1.
By July 1st. Now, on app server, the app server 11G,
It's December
we have to be
31st.
on that by December of next year.
Before December 31st.
So we've got 8 or 9 months to get your databases up to snuff, and then a little over a year to get your app servers. The issue there is that the forms, and I don't know about SSB. I'm really curious, and I am going to try this when I have some time, but I know the forms are where they're having a lot of problems with getting those to compile properly with the WebLogic 11G app server against the 10G database. It just doesn't work. You have to have the 11G database to get the 11G forms to compile
Yes.
properly.
Yeah.
Now, with SSB, I really don't see where that should make a difference, although I've failed to see things before, so maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I'll probably try it just for the fun of it for about 10 minutes, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll abandon it just about as quick.
Well, Greg and I are taking the approach of the traditional model, go database first, then the middle tier applications next. So that's the approach that we're recommending.
Well, I'm hoping to go to 11G on the database, assuming I can get the time, but I'm hoping to do that somewhere around the first of the year, after the first of the year. I mean, it's something we're going to have to do. You don't really have a choice in it. We're going to have to do it, and the time window is rapidly closing. The good news, as it were, is that there's not a Banner 9 waiting in the wings to come and beat us in the head again. However, you know, SunGuard can say whatever they want. You know, it's not Banner 9, but first quarter of next year, they're supposed to release the new INB replacement, the first part of that. So there'll also be that to contend with, and
Right.
if that's not a 9, I don't know what is, but they're not gonna call it 9, so whatever. But yeah, we will all have to be at 11G pretty soon, so it's best to start thinking about that now. And again, with what Larry said, trying to do all this at one time is, you're throwing so many variables into the pot that it'll make it really impossible to troubleshoot where your problems are.
I'd like to add one more thing about the banner 8 and the 11G. We did encounter one more piece where the security features in 11G says that anything that is an encrypted or password protected role cannot be used as a default role during startup. Ban Default Connect is a password protected and encrypted role, and that is how you get access to Banner or to the database in general. SunGuard does have a patch in Banner 8.3 that is acceptable to run in Banner 8.2 that allows you to create a new role that is not password protected, that gives the end users the connect role so that they can actually connect to the database. So you're going to get a new role with your BandSector. What is it? User connect, and then band connect, band default connect, and user default connect. And the only difference is one's password protected and one is not.
Which to me, again, I don't know why in SunGuard's infinite wisdom they decided to do it that way. The whole connect role issue, actually create session role, is the one you really need. There's a connect role that has a create session privilege in it, and also Band Default Connect has a create session privilege in it. And if you'll go and look up who has create session, just that individual privilege, it's kind of used willy-nilly. It's one of those privileges that it's really kind of nice. If you only grant create session through a role and you want to keep everybody out of your database, all you have to do is revoke that privilege from that role and boom, nobody gets in. So it's really kind of a neat way to, if you have it set up that way, and from years past, that's how I had set up create session privilege, so that when I wanted to keep everybody out of the database, I could keep everything up, but just take that role away from everybody that I want it taken away from. Well, the way that SunGuard has willy-nilly dropped that create session privilege all over the place, it's made it very difficult, almost virtually impossible to do that. Now, your user accounts, you have a lot more control over that. The Banner baseline accounts, the Alumni, Saturn, and FAIS Manager and all those, I've seen in some cases they ended up with create session 3 and 4 different times because of different roles it's in, direct grants, and the Band Default Connect. Now, again, this has been an issue. It's been an issue for a long time. DBA's been working with Oracle for a long time, have made this complaint that if you have a default role that has a password on it, then I can completely circumvent that by giving it to somebody as default. You no longer have to know the password, which pretty much obviates the security on that role. So it's something that has been really, it's been a security issue for a long time. Now, the fact that Oracle is just now, addressing it, and so many people have come to use it as a feature rather than a defect, is really the problem. And right now, we're kind of having to pay that penalty. Now, why SunGuard believes that Band Default Connect has to be password protected, again, that's beyond me. The other two roles, Band Default M and Q, fine. But Band Default Connect does not need to be password protected. It just doesn't. There's no need for it. It's create session. That's all it is. What's next? What's in the world of DBAism that everybody's worried about now?
I was gonna say the 13 hours that you used to upgrade, that doesn't cover mods, so.
It really depends on how you load everything out, and it's going to vary by what you have, and the fact that a year ago there were a lot fewer patches and upgrades out there than there are today, and that was what was, I guess, in a lot of ways scaring me and prompted me to go ahead and get out of the way, because as of last Thanksgiving, I no longer had to worry about Banner 7. I mean, it went off my radar completely at the end of the year. I go, okay, New year, I don't care anymore about Banner 7. It's gone, it's history.
Do y'all authenticate within the database? Do you use an LDAP?
No, we're using straight up, Oracle database security.
So you're changing over to an LDAP type of authentication?
Using OID or Open LDAP.
We just authenticate with the database right now, but the thing about Active Directory.
We're using Active Directory.
It's good to see that everything's going so great.
How many schools are on Banner 8 already? So majority of the schools have already went over. We recently went over, I guess 2 weeks ago. Took us 3 days of about 10 hours with the other DBA work, and then we did patches on the weekend. We was fairly back up on Monday. Took us about 5 days altogether. Patches was the biggest thing. We had 200 and 300 patches, to put in. That was the biggest. After we got General 8 up, patching is what took so long. I think ETSU, Mark said you guys did it 2.5 days, but you guys worked round the clock, correct?
Did anybody use the automatic installer? Or everybody using just the straight up scripts?
I know Austin Peay used it.
We always use it
Installer. Automatic update or whatever it is.
Yeah, the Perl scripts.
I know there's a session on it somewhere, either has yesterday or.
Had it
Yeah, it was
yesterday.
yesterday.
Just curious.
We've used them, we've had pretty good success with those. But on a big upgrade like that, we'll customize those steps to take out all the extraneous compiles and all that stuff. And makes it go a lot faster.
Yeah, compiling all the forms and compiling all of the C and COBOL programs and all that, that can cut down. There's one place at the very beginning of Banner 8 General that you have to compile some COBOL things. And once you've gotten past that, it's GLBL letter or something. Once you've gotten past that, the next compiles are when everything is done. And then you just run a mass compile on every object you have in the database, all the C, all the COBOL, and all the forms. Now, back several years ago, when I had our forms on a Windows box, it was like a 700 megahertz box or something. It would take hours and hours to do this, and I would script up the compiles of the forms and basically go away for a day and come back. Now I've got everything on a Linux box now, but I can script those things up and I can recompile all 3,000, 4,000 forms, whatever it is, in I guess it's an hour or so, a couple hours. It goes pretty fast.
So Roger saying that all those microscripts, you can just wait till the end and do a mass compile on, and it's not going to affect the upgrade process?
As far as the compiles go, the migrants you want to do along the way, the migrations you want to do along the way. But the compile scripts, I mean, if you're compiling, if you're going from 8.0 to 8.1 to 8.2 to 8.3, and you're going to see the same forms and the same jobs getting recompiled over and over and over again, the best thing you can do, you're going to have to recompile them sooner or later, but you may have one form or one job due to patches plus the upgrades themselves. You may have one form that was delivered 6 times or 8 times. Why recompile that 6 or 8 times? Just wait to the end and do them all.
You may be talking about forms.
Yep. Well, forms or C programs or COBOL programs. I mean, they get delivered and redelivered, and even on this weekend I'm doing my monthly maintenance, and I've got 13 or 14 between patches and upgrades and whatever. I got 13 or 14 kits that I need to go through. But at the very end of all that, I'll do one big compile and get it all.
So all the microscripts, as you go, all the C and COBOL, hold off till the end.
Right. Like I said, there is one caveat if you're in General 8, there's one place where it says you have to do this. But I mean, it's really just compiling a couple of forms, and it's just the first couple of, programs. It's the first couple of COBOL programs in General 8. and then it runs a test to make sure all is working, and then you say, okay, that's the last compile I'm doing for 13 hours. I'll get in there and do that day, or 10 or 12 hours, and then it runs all the compiles at once.
Does anybody have a clean address?
We do.
Yeah, keeping track of what forms, and
Yeah.
that's a little bit of a problem with me, is like, okay, have they got the new format yet, or which one, looking it up.
Well, it's things like eVisions, if you're running IntelliCheck or the eVisions products, then, you know, your was it, the payroll and the finance jobs, those are very specific to each version. And we had to actually hold up, back in January, we were getting ready to, I was ready to put the 8.3 stuff on in, actually not January, but in February. And I did my due diligence. I sent this stuff out to our functional people and said, here's what's coming, here's what's being changed. Go to your release guides, they're posted out on our website, look at all this stuff, and tell me if there's any reason why we can't do this. We came up a couple of days before I was ready to rock and roll on these things, and I go, we didn't get the new versions from FormFusion, or from eVisions, and that was absolutely a showstopper, because we couldn't quit printing checks for 3 weeks while we waited for eVisions to get that back to us. So we had to put that whole upgrade off for another month.
Well, we had a little bit of a delay, but that was partly, I think, our fault. We dropped the
Yeah.
ball. We didn't let eVisions know we were going to 8, and they had to redo some of their, you know.
Right,
their
it's
stuff
the
to
same
redo.
problem. That was our problem, but,
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't my problem. It was because somebody said, oh, we're okay, go for that.
Yeah.
And then, oh yeah, we need to print checks, and that
They
changed.
do have to do mine, so, you know, that, we were very lucky. I think it was like a week turnover, where they,
Yeah, typically they'll get it done, you know, they tell you up to 3 weeks.
yeah.
So you better give them a little lead time, but usually they'll get it to you in a week or less, a lot of times.
Yeah, they were.
We got lucky, we got 24-hour turnaround.
Okay,
We'd overlooked it too, and we just said, hey, emergency.
It
It was
probably
our
is.
fault, but it wasn't that big a deal, it was just a matter of them getting around to it. But they gave it to us in 24 hours, which was unusual, but we just totally overlooked it. It was Fab, CHKP, or whatever that thing was. Yeah, we just totally overlooked it. But, you know, we only cut checks once a week or something. And we keep our C numbers the same. I know that you're not supposed to. Who cares? So I compile in pre-prod and then slop them over to prod. So the Cs, COBOLs, and forms are already done. I just.
Yeah,
that's it.
we
We've
did
done
it in
that
test,
too.
that's what I did. You know, I got everything all set in my test
Yeah.
environment, the users blessed it, and then when it came down to it, I just copied the forms. So
Yeah.
you can't
Keep your C numbers the same, you got one compile.
Yeah.
Now, we've changed our C numbers, and as long as your C numbers have changed across all your different environments, you're okay. You can still move things back and forth. If you ever change them again, then you gotta, there's a document that Sundog has accomplished that's straightforward. There's about 7 or 8 items that you really gotta pay close attention to when you compile forms and stuff. But, like I said, if you keep the C numbers across the different environments the same, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, regardless of what they are. Some people have prod, pre-prod different.
Yeah.
Supposedly for security.
Right.
We just didn't do that.
If you have all 200 something forms compiled in a Banner 8 test database, can you just copy over your compiled forms? Can you just use the same compiled forms at the end and just copy them right over and then say I'm done with it? Because all these forms are expecting a Banner 8 compiled hash database, and then basically say, okay, you know, just like the flow, wrap it up and just pop it over there, and at the end, and then just slowly bring up the database to that level, and at the end, is that true?
If you're at the same revs and you have the same seed numbers, you're good to go.
That's
The
what I-
trick there is really that everything needs to be at the same level,
At the
at the
patch
same
level.
patch level, and those seed numbers have to match. So if you've got that, yeah.
That's probably expecting that one, but I want to verify.
I mentioned that, what do they call it, the automatic installer for the updates process. You know, I've used it a couple times, but the problem that I have is when there's something wrong with the updates, which unfortunately is fairly common, it just seems to get me in worse trouble, so I gave up on it. I just do it line by line, that way if I know there's a problem, it's like right in my face and I can fix it at that point in time.
I've got a bunch of little scripts, I just do manually too, but I've got a bunch of little scripts I wrote, like, for the load mod step.
Yeah,
I just type, I've got a are you ready?
yeah,
Figures out the prefix, I just say, are you ready? Load mod, GOV mod,
yeah.
are you done? I've got almost all of them down to, even migrant. I've got almost all of them down to a one word command.
Yeah, I can see the advantage of doing it. In fact, I think that the guy that originally installed the banner system had that, and he left them on our system. I just never have looked at them to use them. So I'm always doing the RU, GRU.
It just cuts down on the amount of.
Yeah, and always typing out those passwords or anything. It's just not that it's hard. But we always set them to the you pick it and change on install when we do the upgrade, and then flip it back when we go back. But change, and all the hyphens and stuff. Just,
Yeah, I've got a ubiquitous script that just changes them all within a, called user prod, that changes prods all back to prod or
Yeah,
user
I do
pre-prod.
too.
So one command. Yeah, you almost always want to use ubiquitous because everything specs, it's too much hassle.
right, otherwise you have to go find out. and
It's
change
not
them.
only in your login.sql, but it's in all these shell scripts.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just hard coded everywhere, it's just not worth fighting,
yeah.
it's just not worth fighting.
There, you just put that in your path, so it finds, so you don't, where you keep your script at, so that it knows where your script is when you run that.
What, the ubiquitous script or these other one-liners?
I can set up the environment for that, so you don't have to copy any folders or something. You change your folders around a lot when you go and upgrade, so where is that with respect to the script and the environment variable? That's all.
Pathwise, the only thing I think of is, in the login script, I always change the spool prefix to, the Oracle SID / so I change the dollar, Oracle _ SID, and then forward, be sure to /. Then I always have a folder with my SIDs, upper prod, pre-prod, and it'll go in the right thing. Because I know some people will sit there and actually hard code in pre-prod, and then have to go back and change prod. Make an Oracle SID / and it'll go in that folder.
But you see what I'm saying, I'm trying to know where when you go into the upgrade folders, how when you type in your one-word script, does it know where it's at without having to copy it like you do?
You can use aliases. That's one method. I know there's other ways of doing it, but that's
So
probably the easiest.
I use an alias, right?
And if you put the directory in your SQL path where you have that stuff, it'll show up too. If you ever lose that.
Okay. So see,
Yeah. As far as these one-liner scripts I've got, I just got them in, use a local bin. I mean, anybody can see them. I'm the only one that uses them. I just throw them in use a local bin, so they're there. Just throw them somewhere that you got anyhow. Nothing special. They're no good to anybody else.
Are you all maintaining the seed database and tree, or are you mostly testing against clone copies of your database?
I got rid of seed a long time ago.
Yeah.
I got rid of seed and TRNG a long time ago. I got so tired of upgrading those things. We're down to prod and pre-prod, and we'll clone prod back to pre-prod. And actually, when we were going to Banner 8, we actually had prod and pre-prod on our production server Banner 7, and then I'd already played several times on our test server with Banner 8, so we actually had a pre-prod 7 and a pre-prod 8 for a while. But before I do anything, I always do a full clone prod to pre-prod so we can get a full dress rehearsal. With the test server, thankfully, I was able to do that without messing with pre-prod 7, because, the users are using that test with, so it's almost like almost production in a way. You can't just bring it down. But all that thing about to apply it to seed first. It's like, forget it. No, never mind. No. And I blew it away probably 5 years ago, and have never ever missed it. I did export it, I think, just for CYA, but if you ever need it back, you just get a copy, or if you need to know a seed value, you find somebody who's got a seed sitting around.
I don't think in
But I
the 10
never-
years I've been doing it, we've ever had to use a seed anyway. So
Yeah.
we haven't had ours in 5 years either.
That's really just SunGard's way of saying, make sure the upgrade works against our, you know, our baseline data, but, when you've got a lot of local bonds, that's one place you probably get in trouble with that. So, yeah. But, yeah, if you get tired of seeing, just blow it away.
It's handy if you have a lot of testing. If you have like a dedicated testing group that if they find a problem with your clone copy of prod with the patch installed, then you can go back to your seed and say, well, did it come via baseline or is it because of what we have? You know, is it because of our data? Is it because of our mods? That would be handy, but that's a lot of testing. Most of us don't have that luxury.
Yes, good in theory, but in practice.
Just too much time.
Besides the patching, what other things do you do for time savers?
I know, well, I mean, in general, I start, as any new patch comes in, a patch or upgrade, either one, as they come in, I log these into a big spreadsheet I've got. One of these days I'll put it in Apex or something, but I've just got a monstrous spreadsheet that every time a patch comes in on BPost, it goes in the spreadsheet, it gets logged in, this is the date it came in. If it gets re-released, then there's a comment field out here that tells me it was re-released. Every patch and upgrade gets then forwarded on to our functional people, and they're supposed to look at these and go, yes, we want it, or no, we won't. We don't just put every patch on because SunGard releases a patch. Some of them you need, some of them you don't, some of them are going to cause more harm than good, and some of them you're going to have to go back and fix anyway. But the upgrades, the same deal. When an upgrade comes in, you get it out there, get those release guides out there as soon as possible. People may look at them or they may not, but at least you could go to sleep with a good conscience and know that, hey, I did my part, I put this out there. If they're not going to read it, I can't force them to do that, but they've been warned. And we have, you know, I just got an email like Monday, yesterday, for someone asking if we were going to put the Alumni 832 on this weekend. And I'm just waiting on them to tell me whether they want to or not. So it's not up to me. As far as I'm concerned, I'd never like to do another patch again. But for some reason, people want these things, and you know, the bugs get fixed.
There's never any problems with upgrades.
Oh no, never, never. That's why financial aid 8.9 is coming up for its third try this week, hopefully.
Hey, I'm all done with that.
Yeah. I'm still waiting. I'm waiting on version 3 to see if they get it right this time.
Well, I don't blame you. But I suffer the pain, at least it's in my past now.
But getting these things done ahead of time, walk through your scripts, make sure that there aren't steps missing. You know, if you see something, for example, in the financial aid 8.81, 8.9, there's this whole new needs analysis, software as a service, web service that you're going to have to implement. And when I went through the release guide that says here are the follow-up steps so you get it so that it really works. There are like 2 pages of instructions on how to set up the web service. And then it goes, well, that's great, but they also allow you to set it up as a process running at a job sub. To run the web service, you have to be on app server 10.1.3, whatever, or 11G. To run it at job sub, you just have to run job sub. I go, okay, well that seems like a good idea, but SunGard is just absolutely pushing us onto this web service. Great. 2 pages of instructions on how to build and set up the web service. And then it goes down, and if you're going to use job sub, step 1, step 2.
Oh.
I went, okay, step 1, step 2, where's the rest? I submit a service request. SunGard comes back and says, yep, that's it. I go, why would anybody want to do a web service? To do job subs 2 steps. Oh, it's faster, it's better. It's technology for technology's sake, but okay, it's better. But if you have any questions, that's what you're paying support for. Get on that line and say, look, I have a question. Let me know, confirm or deny or whatever. And there have been a lot of cases where I have gone out there and questioned a step or whatever in an upgrade guide, and lo and behold, the next thing you know, there's a patch released for it, or they've re-released something. I guess I've gotten my notoriety for the last financial aid fiasco back in the spring, when I said basically SunGuard wasn't doing their job, and I got personal phone calls saying, hey, we're doing great. No, you're not.
And then 8.9 came.
And, yeah, and then 8.9 comes out, and we're back to the same old, and, you know, so you definitely
They are gonna
hold their,
They are
they
gonna
are
re-post that
supposed to re-release it.
They said they were gonna repost it, and they changed their mind about it.
Well, after getting beat up by about.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is, if SunGuard were to fix this problem, yeah, it's gonna take them 8 or 9 or 12 hours of programmer developer time, and yeah, that's just not cheap. But how cheap is it to put 2 or 3 hours on every single one of us in this room on each database that we have to do this on? Where's the cost of that? SunGuard's not taking that into account. They need to start taking that into account. We need to hold them responsible. But as a measure, you know, check those release guides. It will save you time in the end of the day. There are some things, like I said, holding off your compiles to the end of your upgrades, holding off your forms compiles definitely the end of the upgrades, scripting out a lot of these things. I have scripts that I have written as super scripts to run the compiles for the forms or for the you know, for the C compiles or COBOL compiles. If I need to, but every now and again, you'll go to a new version of Oracle, say, and going to the new version, you go to 11G, what are you going to have to do? You are going to have to recompile all of your C and all of your COBOL, maybe all your forms. Probably you should do all your forms. Now, you can go in there and execute each script one at a time, or you can put them all in a superscript and just tell it to upgrade everything and then check the log files. Another thing you want to do is, if you haven't heard about no hangup, that can save you. If you're SSHing into your console, or if you're using VMC to get to your console, if you lose your connection, so what? The session is over on your server. Only if the server crashes do you have a problem, or your VMC crashes, do you have a problem. But using NoHup in a lot of places, every one of my scripts that says, you know, where in the instructions, it'll say shell stumiger.sh to the log file, whatever. If you run that as a NoHup as a background process, if your session gets disconnected, it'll continue to run. And it's a whole lot better than, well, it got halfway through, my session got disconnected, and now I gotta go figure out what damage is caused and reverse part of that out, put part of that in there. But those are little tricks that you can do along the way to save yourself time, potentially on the back end. If you don't know what that is, let me know, and I'll be glad to show you info on that. It's a Linux thing, a Unix thing.
So you actually read through all the documentation before you notify your users? I'm just curious, because right now I was told don't do anything unless the users tell me.
Well, here's what I do. The bpost, I live off of bpost. If it's not a bpost, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You
okay,
have
so
to give
I'm-
me special dispensation. I have to grant special dispensation before I'll consider doing a patch that's not coming in on bpost. And that's where I think, you know, if SunGuard does away with bpost, my whole system goes out the window. But right now, something comes in on bpost, it's for student. I will forward that on to our student functional person. I'll take a look at it. If it's an upgrade, I'll download the upgrade. I don't even download the patches most of the time because in the bpost you have a listing of the README file. It tells you what it's going to change, what it's going to do, and then it tells you how to do the install. But I forward that on to our functional people, and I log it into my spreadsheet, and I go, okay, right now this is tentative. I don't know whether we're going to do it or not. I wait to hear back from them, and you know, each time I get ready to do, we do maintenance once a month unless it's a critical issue. So I go through that list that's come in since the last upgrade, and I go, okay, are we going to do this one? Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. If yes, download it, unpack it, then I will go through and read the whole thing. But yeah, in most cases, no. Upgrades, you know you're going to do the upgrades.
Yeah, eventually.
So you might as well go ahead and download those, get the release guides out there on however you distribute release guides. We bring them all in-house and then put them up on the website. And then say, the new release guides are out there, knock yourself out.
there was at one time, they were saying that it was my responsibility to read through all the stuff to determine what they need. And I was
That's
like,
baloney.
I don't have time.
Well, how do you know?
How do you know?
Their business
Well,
processes. I don't know anything about awarding
That's-
financial aid. I don't know
Right.
if you need that or not.
Well, I know, but
Our
they
It
don't
may add something
understand.
we don't award, so we don't need that. But
Our financial aid folks are the best ones to read the release guys. Nobody
Oh,
else
yeah.
does. Nobody
Ours-
else does. Our admission folks are asleep.
Absolutely.
Records
the same
office,
thing.
so, but our fin aid, they've learned,
You know,
because
Yeah.
too many things change.
Well, as
You gotta-
our Fin A person is, like, jumps on everything and tells me to install it directly in prod the first thing, and that's where I got an 8.9. I mean, that's why it's in my past now, because I suffered on the first day before they even had the first notification. But yeah, she reads through the guide, and she's the only one that does in our whole institution.
Now, will skipping patches, will it create any kind of dependency problems? Or will a patch usually say, if it needs a dependency, you need to go back and
There are occasionally, I know there was a release not too long ago that I went back and had to apply a patch, and it ended up being one of those situations where it was a ridiculous cascade. Well, this patch is dependent on this patch, which are dependent on these patches, which, you know, I had to start laying it out on a piece of paper to figure out what I needed and what I didn't, and thankfully, two things. You have there's a table in the database that will list all your patches, which ones it is.
GoPros?
Yeah, GURPOS. You look through GURPOS and you know, find that patch. That's one thing. The other is like I said, every time that I apply one, I put in there, yes, this is going to be applied, and then in the comment I have not only applied what database and what date on that database. So I can go back and somebody says, well, did we apply this patch? Flip, 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 yeah, right there, on this date we applied that patch. And again, you go through GURPOS, or I have it in a spreadsheet either way.
I have an Argos report that our users actually can get to, our selected ones, because we have one person in finance who's very astute, and she will do research, and she will look at that, and, you know, before she asks me about anything. Or if she's got a problem, she'll check and see.
The other thing is, when you look at releases, something to be aware of, and SunGuard says publicly that like an 8.9 release of financial aid will include all of the patches that were released between 8.8 and 8.9, most of the time. It's not set in stone. They do miss things, and occasionally they will miss things that are very important to your world. So don't assume. Go back through there and you know, if you're keeping some list, then you can go through there and just start going through and saying, okay, is this patch in there, is this one in there? Especially when you're skipping the intermediate releases, like an 8.8 to 8.1 to 8.8.1 to 8.9. Again, in theory, everything's supposed to be in the 8.9 between the 8.8, but there have been instances where they have skipped a patch or two, and it was not in the next full version, especially when you get real close to a patch date. You know, one will slip in before, you know, that they're in cycle or just out of cycle or whatever. We had one happen like that not too long ago. A lot of mess that was on that.
Did it catch it in your Dumon?
Yeah, it was. But, you know, some of these are important and some of them are not. And I don't know, for me personally, I don't, quote, use Banner. I have to support Banner. But my use of Banner is going out to see how much vacation time I have. That's about it. And that's SSB. You know, that's self-service. INB, I go in there to set up printers. That's about it.
I go in there for security.
Yeah. I don't ever use your security. I don't go through JIT.
No, I haven't written anything yet for that.
We have about 2 minutes left. Are there any final questions? Comments? I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank our panelists.